Are you in a season of waiting? You could be waiting for all sorts of things. You might be waiting for your immature child to finally grow up, even though they're, 32 years old. Or maybe you're waiting and waiting for God to answer your prayer regarding your husband, something about your husband. Or maybe you're waiting and waiting and waiting for that relationship with that good friend of yours that seemed to have gone south, to be repaired, and you're just waiting. Whatever you're waiting for, waiting is not very much fun. I'm not very good at it because waiting requires patience. Not exactly a virtue that many of us specialize in, right? So how do we do this waiting thing patiently? Well, here are two realizations that have really helped me wait, even though I'm not perfect at this, but these realizations have helped me, and I think they'll help you too. The first realization is this: even though God's timing is way different than my timing usually is, that He does eventually show up. And that's so comforting to know that, yeah, He's perfect, He's sovereign, and His timetable is perfect, even though it doesn't seem to make sense to me, but that He will eventually show up. Let me read you a section of Psalm 40, because this is just a beautiful psalm kind of explaining this whole thing. It says, "I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me up out of the slimy pit, out of the muck and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth." I love that verse because it's that hope that wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Yes, He pulls me out of the muck and mire and He gives me a new song to sing, a song of rejoicing. Finally, yay! So that's realization number one. Realization number two is this: when I read about some of the famous women in the Bible, women like Sarah and Rebecca and Hannah and Rachel, they have something in common. They all had to wait and wait and wait ridiculously long amounts of time to finally get pregnant. I mean, they begged God, they implored God, they practically gave up because, it took decades for them to get pregnant. But finally they did in God's perfect timing. And it was worth waiting for because each one of those women gave birth to a man who became a giant of the faith. Think of Sarah giving birth to Isaac, who was a giant of the faith. Think of, Rachel giving birth to Joseph, a giant of the faith. Hannah giving birth to Samuel, who became a giant of the faith. So it was worth waiting for, but that really great, awesome thing that they were waiting for, that turned out so awesome, it took a long time. God made them wait for it, but it was worth waiting for. That gives us hope.